So, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are in the world. We wanted to get an update. Super Domingo, important elections today um, in Peru, in Ecuador. And we have with us Kayla Popuchet, who's going to bring us the breaking news. And we're also going to share some footage from people's journalists who are on the ground in Ecuador, in Peru. So how you feeling, Kayla?
I'm on edge. I'm on edge. I'm sure, we all are right now. I'm, hearing some different things, but yeah, we still have to wait till the end of the night. The polling actually just closed in New York to vote in New York for the president in Peru, but we'll still have to wait to see what, when the results come in and who is leading. Um, and lots of polls say different things, so it's really hard to have a prediction of who is actually going to win. The official elections official polling says that it should be George Forsyth or it'll be Johnny Lescano who will go to the second elections. Then there's other newspapers that have their own polling that says it will be either Keiko Fujimori or who's the other person? Pedro Castillo. Sorry, just blanked. My mind blanked for a second. So really, it's just we just got to wait and see. We've also seen some other polls that say Veronica Mendoza is leading. Spasiba. So we really just have to wait till the end of the night to see. But as I just told you before, they are saying now that Veronica looks like she is leading in Sweden, New Zealand, and in Paris, where closing has been closed now. As they are about 6 and 7 and 12 hours ahead of us here in the United States, and Lima's an hour behind, so it's only 3 o'clock still in Lima.
And has it always been like that Peruvians in the diaspora or Ecuadorians in the diaspora could vote? Or is that part of the new Asamblea Nacional in Ecuador that pushed for that? I'm curious, how long have Peruvians been able to vote in the diaspora?
In my understanding, that Peruvians have always been able to vote since we've had consulates and embassies. But definitely, as the diaspora gets larger and larger, this has been more advanced. The percentage of Peruvians that live abroad is about 10% of the Peruvian nation in general, which is fairly large, and there's reasons for that. So, just at least in terms of like how much we are represent the voting population, the diaspora represents 4% of the voting population at this moment. So it's definitely had to get more advanced. There's more polling locations. Even the polling location that I went to, and I've seen the ones in Jersey, in Boston, in Canada, and so have you. The lines are very long. The wait is long. People are standing in the rain for hours trying to get in and cast their ballots. So even while there is a vast, more so than others, a vast opportunities to vote, different polling locations, it's still a little far behind considering that people are waiting hours and hours to vote in the rain. But they're still out there and they're still doing it. I had to travel 40 minutes to go to my polling location, and but people are still doing it so that we can have our voices heard.
If you had to make your own predictions, independent of your own political sympathies, if you just had to give a cold calculation, who do you see advancing to the June runoff? What two candidates out of 18 candidates? And I think the New York Times and the BBC and the Western imperialist press, predictably, they've been very cynical about Peru. When I read the mainstream updates, I almost read like a gossip column. They talked about this far-right candidate who engaged in self-flagellation, or he would beat himself down if a beautiful woman passed by, so that, well, anyway, those were they weren't talking anything serious.
Insane.
Chisme, bochinche.
Yeah. Well, I had a lot of higher hopes for Juntos por el Perú, but just recently, 2 days before, so Friday morning, this went out. This was all over the news of one of the candidates who was running for Congress for Juntos del Perú, was caught on tape, just you saying a lot of classes. And it's not Veronica Mendoza herself, but it's one of the candidates in the coalition, saying very classist things. And while that is definitely something to be frowned upon, I think that there's something to be said about the Peruvian state, the Peruvian media, the imperialists abroad, constantly sending out circulation to either attack Veronica Mendoza or blatant just disinformation. I've seen videos highly edited where they're trying to paint Veronica as a apologist for the Sendero Luminoso, the shining path, when she's nothing but against them, and they would have likely have killed her. But they create this narrative that, oh well, she's a leftist, so she's a terrorist, she supports the terrorists, and they did this through her sitting next to a guy who stood up and said that Abimael Guzman should be free, and she was just sitting next to the guy, so obviously she supports that message as well because she was sitting next to the guy. So just absolutely Looney Tunes logic, but who I see will be going into the second round, I definitely believe that it would be Johnny Lescano, considering he is a center-left, more of the safer option. The only thing that hurts him is that his party has recently come under fire for being a golpista, for helping take out Martin Vizcarra and putting in Manuel Merino, who is largely unpopular for, one, being a golpista, but also the crackdown against the Peruvian people, protesting against this conspiracy to take out Martin Vizcarra. So that's one thing that he has to, try to overcome. But I definitely see at least him moving forward. Not so much of the extreme right candidates like the one that you mentioned who does self-flagellation. That's Rafael Lopez Aliaga. He is a far right, friend of Keiko Fujimori, of Alberto Fujimori. He's super religious. 40% of 63% of Peruvians, so only 40% would, but 63% said that they would never vote for Keiko. So I don't think that Keiko has a very good chance of even winning the presidency, whether or not she goes to the second election. But it wouldn't be her first time going to the second round, so I can't speak too soon. I would like to see either Pedro Castillo or Veronica Mendoza making it to the second round, especially Veronica Mendoza, but we'll just have to wait and see, to be honest.
Are there big differences between Castillo and Veronica Mendoza?
Absolutely. I'll give the pros and cons. So Pedro Castillo, some of the good things that has won him over massively with the people is that he doesn't make media appearances. He doesn't sit there and do campaign videos, talk to newspapers. He's all about working with and amongst inside the people. He goes to the provincia. He goes and campaigns there, and he's among the people. Also, he considers himself a leftist. He supports Venezuela. He supports the populist states. I would describe Pedro Castillo as a populist, but that's about it. At the end of the day, Veronica's policies are much more, and what she wants to build in Peru are much more left-wing than what Pedro Castillo wants to espouse. Veronica Mendoza wants to nationalize Peru. She wants to build a plurinational state. She wants to publicize the healthcare system, whereas Pedro Castillo, on the other hand, said that he would rather be in coalition with Keiko Fujimori than Veronica Mendoza any day of the week. He calls Veronica Mendoza an opportunist, but would rather stand in alliance with Keiko Fujimori. He's homophobic. He's racist. He's transphobic. So I would prefer, if it was, the last option, he's obviously the last best option, but he's a populist at the end of the day, and that's just about it. He's not a leftist. He's very confusing. He's very convoluted, you could say, but Veronica Mendoza is definitely the furthest left candidate of all of them at this moment.
All right, thanks for that clarification. Let's go live to Ecuador with some footage here. One of the things nowadays is very important is that we have people's journalists on the ground in Ecuador. Since today's the big showdown in Ecuador, we have Alina Duarte. If you don't follow her, definitely follow Alina. She's on the ground in Quito right now. Let's see what footage she brings us. She's talking about, unlike the February 7th runoff, today there's different voting regulations. Here she's showing people going to the voting stations. Um, the polls close in another few hours in Ecuador. So follow Alina. Follow as well Marco Deregui, the Uruguayan journalist. He's in Ecuador as well. Here we see the beautiful Andean landscape and how important to have people's journalists on the ground, because for so long CNN and Fox dominated these media narratives, and now we can go to YouTube or IG or Twitter and actually see the unfolding footage. Rafael Correa was actually just tweeting to be careful, to be on maximum alert because of potential fraud in Ecuador. So the right wing will stop at nothing to retain economic and political power. Another great journalist, Lautaro Rivara. I actually met him in Haiti.
Oh, I follow him.
Oh, you follow Lautaro? He's Argentinian, but he lived in Haiti and speaks the Haitian Creole. He's a Bolivarian journalist. So how beautiful that we have these options. So things seem optimistic in Ecuador, and the U.S. has tried to make further inroads into Ecuador. In 2006, Rafael Correa said no to the private base, the U.S. military base in Manta. And Rafael Correa heroically, patriotically said, if you all gringos think you can have a base here in Manta, us Ecuadorians will set up a base outside the White House and outside the Pentagon. We'll set up a base in Miami. How would you like that? Calling out these double standards.
Right.
Esa doble moral del imperio. So, but then here comes Lenin Moreno auctioning off the country, and the U.S. almost immediately set up a base. They say it's just a refueling base in the Galapagos. They have a base. I think they call it a marine base or a Navy base in Peru. They always try to dress these things up, but from the perspective of the Peruvian people and the Ecuadorian people, there should be no U.S. military base, no U.S. military personnel.
It's just so dumbfounding when you think about that as a concept. How is it that a foreign military can have bases in a foreign country? Can you imagine China setting up bases in Argentina, in Peru, or even in Texas? People would lose their minds, because really it is just such a unless you are like, it's just a concept that makes absolutely no sense. Why the United States should have 900 bases around the world, it just blows my mind.
And that's what a lot of people don't realize. The New York Times says that China is the threat every day and Russia is the threat, but it's NATO and the U.S. encircling Russia. It's the U.S. military who's in the South China Sea. Yep. China does every day. The New York Times, and these are the liberals. Imagine the conservatives. Every day they say, China aggression in the South China Sea. Well, it is their seas.
Right. How dare China have their military presence in China?
Exactly.
How dare Russia put their country so close to NATO bases? That's just disrespectful. They're obviously aggressors.
Mind-blowing. So we have some exciting content coming up. We have some Ukrainian anti-imperialists that we want to interview. A lot of people, Kayla, don't know about the Basque country, El País Vasco. Similar to the Irish struggle in the occupied 6 counties, similar to the Palestinian struggle, Basque country in Catalonia, they don't consider themselves part of Spain, part of this historical empire. So there's this struggle for self-determination. The Venezuelans have really supported the Basque country and the Catalonians. I mean, if it wasn't for Venezuela and Telesur, in my time in Venezuela, I wouldn't even know about these national liberation struggles. And the Irish in me as well. In my time in Belfast and Derry, I learned a lot. So that's some of the content we want to share with people coming up. But I'll leave it with you any last thoughts, comments? Super Domingo Electoral in Latin America. How could the continent be different in 24 or 48 hours?
I'm telling you, if Veronica Mendoza gets to actually make it to the second round, this will be a very big moment for Peru, for all of South America. Like I said before, Peru has always been the heart of Lima, has always been the center of imperialist and colonial power, not from the consent of the people, but because of how important it is geopolitically, how important it is in terms of a country, its resources, its size. Uh, so Peru has definitely been one that's the liberation movement has been very repressed, been very attacked, and been very ignored. A lot of people don't even know where Peru is, what Peru's about, and there's a reason for that. And so I'm glad that we're able to talk about this and we're able to cover it. That there's so much newfound interest in Peru, whether it comes from anti-imperialists or even the diaspora, more and more getting involved in the politics, but a lot could happen. A lot could happen. We can either in Peru, we can either continue on the path of neoliberalism and a crumbling infrastructure, one that has led to the massive death of Peruvians, not just from COVID aside, but just from poverty. One of the richest, most rich and resourceful country in the world, and people live in slums, even in the biggest city in Peru. So, if we choose on the path of plurinationalism, we choose on the path of nationalization and liberating Peru's resources for Peruvian people. There's a saying that comes out of Peru from its native people and during the agrarian reform, this huge reform where the land was taken from colonial landlords and given to native collectives. Those who work the land should own it. And that's something that is still a message that is a slogan for Peruvian leftists. It's to say that the working people of this nation should own the land. The working people should have control of the state. It is a version of land back that says dictatorship of the proletariat, dictatorship of the peasant, and that comes out of Peru. So I really hope that we can take this day today and bring a second agrarian reform, as Veronica Mendoza said that she wants to do. We can take back power of Peru. We can fulfill the message that Tupac Amaru and General Juan Velasco had for us. Take back our country from the imperialist thieves and the comprador class.
Beautiful. There you have it, a second land reform and a second definitive independence for Peru, Ecuador, and all of the continent. So thank you for the live updates, Kayla. Everyone should follow Kayla on social media for these important updates from Peru, the diaspora, and across the continent in these different anti-imperialist struggles. Thanks, Kayla. Peace.
Thank you.
Venceremos.